Good morning. It has been a blessing to be in your presence this morning, to experience worship. I was intrigued as I sat there and listened to the lyrics of your songs, your expressions of gratitude and thanks to the God Jehovah. Reminds me so much of stories that my father used to tell me. My father had his own journey with the God of heaven. I've come to spend several weeks with you to share with you my own story about my journey with God. You see, I had a life that was filled with adventure. There were ups, there were downs, there were mountains and valleys. My story is one of both tragedy and triumph. My story is one of both victory as well as defeat. But ultimately, my story is a story of faithfulness. And I don't know who's in this room, and I don't know what your journeys have been like, what your stories are like, but perhaps something out of my own life will resonate with you. You will identify with me. Maybe somebody will leave here with hope. See, my name is Joseph. My father was Jacob. My father used to tell me about his own walk with the God of heaven. And I remember sitting around him with my brothers, and we would listen to him tell stories about what God was doing in life at various seasons. You see, my father was considered to be one of the patriarchs of the faith. He is the grandson of Abraham. In fact, when they run the litany of the patriarchs, they say the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I wish they'd say Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph, but maybe the list got too long. But still, my father's story, it's a great story, continues on down through my life. And I wish I could tell you that though I come from a great pedigree and a prestigious family, I'd be lying if I told you that I came from the perfect family. In fact, I have discovered that there's no such thing as a perfect family. Maybe there's still room. Maybe I could be wrong. But if there's an individual in here and you come from a perfect family, would you kindly raise your hand? I haven't seen a hand yet. But maybe though, as you think about it, let me just share with you. My great-grandfather, Abraham, heard God speak to him. And still, even though he heard God speak and God led him on a journey, he still stepped outside of the will of God. Yet God blessed him. My grandfather, Isaac, he too would step outside of the will of God, and yet God would still bless him. And I come to tell you that in my family, my father's considered one of the patriarchs. But let me let you in on a little secret. My family is filled. There is a current of deception that flows through my family. Deception. Do you realize that God doesn't use the perfect, but God uses the imperfect? There may be somebody here and you think that you cannot be used because you don't come from the perfect home. You don't have the great story. You don't have the story of riches and power and prestige and prominence. I tell you what, you're looking at somebody who is a product of deception, lie, betrayal, deceit, and still God used me. You see, the deception in my family starts, it goes way back. My father was one of the sons of Isaac. But my father, even from the womb, there was deception, because he tells the story this way. He grabbed on to my uncle Esau's ankle coming out of the womb. He was my grandmother's favorite. He wasn't supposed to get my grandfather Isaac's birthright, but my grandmother tricked my grandfather, and my grandfather stole the birthright. My father stole my grandfather's birthright. Deception. My father tells a story about how he met my mother. He was working for his uncle Laban, and Laban had a daughter named Rachel. Rachel's my mother. In your vernacular, Rachel, she was like poetry in motion, a bad mamma jamma. She was beautiful, arresting the attention of my father. My father asked his uncle if he could have Rachel. Don't get confused and get sidetracked by the fact that my father wanted to marry his cousin. It was a little different back in those days. But a deal was made. My father worked for his uncle. And at the time when he thought that he would have Rachel, he switched it up. And he ended up getting my Aunt Leah. And then on that night, he and Leah lay together. They had children. They had sons. My father was upset, went back to his uncle and said, "You know, I wanted Rachel." And his uncle said, "Well, that's not how it works here. But you can have her. Just give me another 7 years." I know my mama Rachel had to be bad, because my daddy stayed 7 more years and waited for her. My father did marry Rachel, but you know what? My mother could not have children. My father had sons with Leah. She wasn't his preferred wife, but she gave him sons. Not only that, but my mother Rachel so badly wanted to give my father a son that she told my father to lie with her servant. And so my father had more sons with Bilhah and Zilpah. And he had more sons. But God heard the prayers of my mother. And guess what? She had me, Joseph. I tell you, my story, it starts in the midst of this winding train of deception. And it gets down to this. I'm known as a dreamer. I brought so much stress on myself, and my father brought stress on me as well. I didn't have it easy. I had struggles. I had to fight. I had it difficult, but God blessed me. I'm going to start this week sharing with you a little bit of my journey and my story. I remember I was 17 years old. My father came to me and told me, he said, "Your brothers are out tending the flocks. I want you to go out and check on them for me." I loved my father, and my father loved me. In fact, my father made it a point to let everybody know that he loved his youngest son, Joseph. Not only that, my father even told everyone, even in the presence of my brothers, I love Joseph more than all of my other children. Let that be a word to anyone who's a parent in here and you have multiple children. Never tell any one of your children that you love one more than the other. You're looking at one who had to deal with the burden of being the favorite child. And just because you love that one child, God gave you multiple children. And all of your children are worthy of your love. I didn't know how to process. I didn't know how to accept such information. But the way I did accept it and processed it, I did it all wrong. You see, my brothers resented my father, and they resented me. Again, to parents, if you have multiple children, pay attention to all of your children, because we all suffered. My brothers suffered because they couldn't do enough to win the love of their father. I suffered because I loved my brothers, but my brothers despised me. I suffered because I didn't know how to win the approval of my brothers. I was caught between my father's honor and my brother's love. I was caught between pleasing my father and winning the affections of my brothers. And I loved my father to death. My father was my hero. And therefore, my father's honor was important to me. And anybody who dishonored my father, they dishonored me. And so my brothers, out of their despite for my father, they despised him. They were dishonoring him. I went to where they were tending flocks, and I heard how they were speaking about my father and what they were doing to dishonor and discredit my father's name. And I went back and told, I went and told it on them. I went back and told my father, Father, they're out there, and the things they're saying, it broke my heart. Father, your own son should not speak the way that they are speaking. They should not do the things. Father, you raised us better than that. I know you expect so much more from your sons. I gave my father a bad report about my brothers. It broke my father's heart, and it broke my heart to see and witness and to have to tell him. I didn't necessarily tell my father because I hated my brothers. I told my father because I hated what my brothers were doing to his name. And things got even worse for me. One day, my father came to me in front of all of my brothers. He started to talk again about he loves his son Joseph. But he did something different this day. He came with a robe, with a coat. It was a colorful coat. Moses records it this way in your text, a coat of many colors. And he said that this is for my beloved son Joseph, who I love more than all of my other children. In front of all of my brothers, in front of all of our servants, my father presented me with this coat. And I wore it with pride. Mistake. I had a choice. I could have told my father, I thank you for the gift, but I'm not worthy to wear such a gift. I could have told my father, Father, you have other sons, and they too are blessings, and they too are worthy of their own coats of many colors. I could have told my brothers, listen, brothers, Father gives me this coat, but I don't deserve it. Why don't one of you wear it? Or why don't we all share it, because we are all Jacob's sons? I didn't do that. I put the coat on. Not only did I put the coat on, but I modeled it. I twirled with it. I walked everywhere. I ran with it. I played with it. I wanted everyone to see it. I would flaunt it in their eyes. I would show it off to everyone. I made them jealous, and I knew they despised me all the more, but I loved how the coat made me feel. Because when I wore the coat, I felt my father's blessing. When I wore the coat, I felt his love. When I wore the coat, I felt like I was somebody. But when I wore the coat in everybody else's eyes, I was nobody. Let me tell you, everybody in here, your father's giving you some gifts. But you must learn a lesson of humility. God may bless you with something, but what he gives you is not to be waved in the face of others who do not have it. Maybe you're fortunate enough out there to have your own coat of many colors. But do you use your coat to bring blessing to others? Or has your coat led to your own journey of hardship and pain? See, it didn't stop with the coat. I believe the coat was kind of the beginning. I told you, I'm a dreamer. Anybody have dreams in here? You got dreams. Dreams are those things that are distant. They are in the future. It's a reality that is yet to come to pass. It is a favorable outlook on your life that is yet to materialize for you. Yet you hold on to it and you see it vividly and it's clear. I had a dream. I didn't know what to do with it. But in my dream, I told my brothers, listen, we had sheaves and mine stood taller than the rest of yours. And not only did mine stand taller than the rest of yours, but yours bowed down to mine. I told that to my brothers, and I said it just like that. My sheaves were taller than yours, and yours bowed down to mine. And my brothers hated me all the more. It's all there as Moses writes this story. It's in the 37th chapter of your text. 37th chapter in the book of Generations, the book of Genesis. There, Moses writes this story eloquently, but I just thought I'd share it with you from my own perspective. I told my brothers, your sheaves bowed down to me, and it infuriated them. But then I had another dream. I told them I had a dream. The sun and the moon, 12 stars, they were bowing down to me. And it infuriated them even more. I had dreams. My dream was, I believed that though I was the youngest, I was destined for greatness. Though I was the youngest, I believed that God had something bigger for me. Though I was the youngest, I believed that God would take me further than my brothers. And not only would he take me further than my brothers, but my brothers would be dependent upon me. I didn't know, I didn't understand it, didn't know how to process it. All I knew to do was to share it with my brothers. I was sincere. I was not trying to lord myself over my brothers. I just wanted to share with them my dream. And I didn't know if they'd be obviously, they were not happy for me. Obviously, they were not honored that their own brother was destined for greatness. They saw my dream as a threat. I even told my father. I told my father about my dreams. And even in my dreams, my father also had to serve me. My father was troubled. He said, what is this? That me and your mother, you think that we're going to serve you? My father didn't get angry, but he kept hold of this in his heart. He knew God was up to something. I want to say this to everyone who dreams. You have dreams. You have dreams, but you know what? Not everyone will celebrate your dreams. Your dreams may make you feel empowered, but your dreams can also give you a burden. Your dreams, in fact, you know what? I didn't choose the dream. The dream chose me. In fact, I believe the dream came from God. Scripture says, later on down in my family line, David writes, delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. I believe that though there are matters that we long for and desire that are beyond our reach and our capacity, but God is keenly aware of it, and God can deposit them in our subconscious. God can give you dreams and visions you may not understand, but everything God reveals is not to be shared with everyone. I learned that the hard way. My brothers, they didn't understand it. They were not the best persons to share my dreams, especially after wearing my daddy's coat in front of them. You're dreaming, and you don't quite understand what the dream means. Hold it dear to your heart, because not everyone will embrace what God is doing in your life. In fact, your dream poses a threat to somebody. You're excited, but not everybody's going to get on board with your excitement. I was excited because I knew the dream had to mean something, but my brothers were not impressed. Because as you are advanced and promoted, somebody feels like they will lose. And there are others who'd rather see you lose than see you rise. God gave me a dream. My father came to me one day and he said, your brothers are out tending to the flocks. I need you to go check on them. See about them. Go to them now. They're down in the region of Shechem. See what they're up to. Check on them. I wanted to please my father. His pleasure was my priority. Immediately, I left straightway with my coat. I made my way down to Shechem, and I looked for them, but I didn't see them. There was a man in Shechem, and I inquired. I said, have you seen my brothers? He said, are you one of Jacob's sons? He said, I overheard them say that they want to leave here and go to the region of Dothan. So I believe that's where they are. So I went onward to Dothan. While I was approaching, my coat blowing in the breeze, making my way to my brothers, Moses would record. My brothers spoke amongst themselves. Here comes the dreamer. But in saying that, they were not saying it like they were excited to see me. My brothers despised me in their hearts. I truly wanted their affection. I wanted my brothers to love me. I just didn't know how to win their affection. In fact, I believe my father had done irreparable damage. Sure, I was blessed. I had my father's blessing. But still, I also wanted my brother's love. Is that too much to ask? Anybody else know what it feels like to be caught between people that you love? Trying to win the affections of both? Feeling like to love one means that you could not love the other? Or you felt awkward because one went out of his way to show you that he loved you. And yet he made it very clear that he did not love the others as much as he loved you. I was trying to please my father, but I still wanted to be just like the rest of his sons. I was going to my brothers, and my brothers were already plotting. In my absence, they were trying to figure out, how do we get rid of the dreamer? How do we do away with him? They were saying such vile things. I wish he had never been born. We had it good. Our father took good care of us. Our mothers loved us. And then Rachel just had to have Joseph. And now, here he comes with his coat. I don't know if my brothers, I don't know which they hated most, me or the coat. But both of us together was bad news. I was coming with the coat because I wore it everywhere. In fact, they saw the coat before they saw me. I was coming with the coat, trying to give them message from Father. And they were already plotting, saying, you know what, let's just take him now. Let's kill him. And let's tear that coat to pieces and do away with him. We're better off with a brother named Joseph and his coat of many colors. In fact, we'll do this and it'll break our father's heart. And we can be there to comfort him and console him. And he'll see that he's got other sons who love him. But you know what? Even though there are people all around you who despise you, who will plot, who will try to plan your demise, because you do know there are people out there. There are people out there who are trying to undo your life. In fact, there is a force at work in the world, the force of evil, the force of darkness, the force of Satan. He's trying to unravel your life, trying to destroy your testimony, trying to take you out, trying to kill you, trying to take you away from your father. But don't you know your father is always at work? My brothers were trying their best to figure out what to do with me. My brother Reuben, I thank God for it. My brother Reuben spoke to my brothers and said, what do we gain by killing Joseph? He gets on my nerves too. He disturbs me as well. but we gain nothing by killing our own brother. Where is the honor in that? How could we live with ourselves by killing him? He said, I know what we'll do. There's a cistern here. It's empty. Let's take Joseph and throw him in there. Let's throw him in there and leave him to the wild animals. We'll leave him there. Better yet, we don't even have to kill him. The Ishmaelites are coming. We'll sell him off. We'll get rid of him. Reuben, my brother, had his own plan. They would throw me in the cistern. Reuben thought that he'd circle back. He would free me. He'd take care of me. I thank God for my brother Reuben. I don't know who you are in here. You feel like you're by yourself. You feel like you are alone. You're misunderstood. You're misunderstood in your own family. Your brothers, they don't care for you. Your father, he's over affectionate. Your mother, she doesn't understand you. But I promise you, God's got a Reuben in your life. God places somebody in your life who's got compassion, who's looking out for you, who's concerned about your interest. My brothers, I was coming up on them and I was smiling, but they weren't smiling back. I saw a different look in their eyes. They took me. They beat me up. They took my coat. They threw me in a hole in the ground. They left me there. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know if I would live or die. Who would get word to my father, and what would they tell him? Is this what Abel felt like when his own brother Cain took his life? My own brothers tried to kill me. And then there was a caravan coming through. I could hear it outside of the pit. My brothers, they didn't kill me, but they may as well have killed me, because they didn't want me anymore. My brothers sold me. They sold me to a band of traveling Ishmaelites, Midianites. They sold me. I didn't know what to make of it. I became someone else's property. In all of my pedigree, my father is one of the patriarchs of the faith. My father wrestled with God at the Jabbok River, and God changed his name from Jacob to Israel. We had prominence in the land of Canaan, and my brothers sold me. Sold me to a caravan of heathens. But you know what? God gave me a dream. Somebody in here, you're dreaming. But you know what? I learned something. Good dreams don't protect us from hardship. God's given you a good dream, and as valuable as it is, the dream still poses a threat. So much of a threat that there are people who don't want to see your dream come to pass. And they will do whatever it takes to prevent it from happening. I believe the dream came from God, but yet and still the dreamer found himself in a hole. Somebody in here today, you've been dreaming, but for whatever reason, the dream's not happening. You keep finding holes. You keep finding pits. You keep finding yourself being sold out. You keep finding yourself being misunderstood. You keep finding yourself being abused and hurt and mistreated, walked on and talked about. What are we to do? Those of us who are dreamers. They're in the hole. My brothers left me. They took my coat. They killed an animal and drenched it in blood and took it back to my father. My father tore his clothes. He was heartbroken over the loss of his youngest son. He said that he could not be comforted because his son was no more. My own brother Reuben felt powerless because his plan was to come back and deliver his young brother. But his brother was gone, sold by his brothers. And my brothers were satisfied. I had dreams. And my dreams had me destined for greatness, but they landed me in a hole. You're dreaming in here. And right now you're in the hole. And you're saying to yourself, this was not part of the dream. You're in the hole. And you're saying, this was not a part of the dream. I don't remember this part in the dream. But now, on the other side of it, I realized the hole was important. But you see, the dream's got to be protected. The dream has to be incubated. It has to be nurtured. The dream has to have time to grow. And sometimes, seed, they grow in the dark. They're placed beneath the ground. And there's things that happen beneath the surface that we never see. Before we ever see the first signs of life crack the surface, there's work happening beneath the surface. All that time, the dream never died, but God just concealed it so that work could happen. I don't know where you are on your journey, but maybe you're in the hole, but the dream still lives. While in the hole, I want you to know that God is there. God is there in your hole, and the dream still lives. And so while there, don't feel like you're by yourself. There is a God in heaven who's there, and he watches us. He keeps us. He never slumbers, nor does he sleep. There may be somebody in here, and you've been in the hole before. You thought the dream was no more. You thought the dream landed you in the hole there to die. But somewhere along the way, God brought you out. Is there one here who can testify to that? That God sees in every hole in our lives. God shows up in every dark place. And I tell you what, God showed up in that hole on that day. Because you know what? Somebody in that caravan saw me, and they wanted to purchase me. It's not a happy ending, but it's not the end of the story. But the dream was still alive. And so, as I conclude today, I'll come back and share more with you about what happens on the journey of my dream. But I just want somebody to know that so you're in the hole, you're still alive. So it's dark, you're still living. So some people put you there against your will, but God is right there with you. Maybe people don't expect you to come out of it, but I promise you, God will bring you out when he's ready. God will send somebody your way. God will send deliverance in his own time, according to his own will, in accordance with his own providence. I don't know why it has to be as dark as it is. I don't know why it has to be as cold as it is, but God knows, and God does not make mistakes. God does not mess up. God does not miss. God is never wrong. God is sovereign. He is eternal. He does things with purpose, and God will bring you out of that hole, just as he brought me out. God bless you, New Hope. I'll see you next week, and I'll share more about my story.